Chapter 15 of The Airplane Boys Among the Clouds. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Airplane Boys Among the Clouds by John Luther Langworthy. Chapter 15. The Awakening. "What is it, Frank?" shouted Larry, as he scrambled to his feet and began clawing around in the dark for the one he called upon. "We've got him," sang out Andy gleefully. "Frank, it worked fine and dandy. My, what a noise he kicks up!" "Where's Elephant?" asked Frank suspiciously. "Sleeping through it all. An earthquake wouldn't wake him up once he gets to going," snorted Larry. "Keep quiet. I'm going to light a lamp," Frank went on, as he reached out to a spot where he knew he had left a box of matches handy for just such an emergency. "Ouch! Somebody kicked me then," Larry shouted. "Frank, there's more'n one of 'em, and they're inside here feeling around for us. Go slow, Frank. Have your gun ready when you light up. Pepper 'em good now. Who's afraid?" "Wait! Don't shoot, Frank. It's only me," shrilled a voice as the speaker managed to get his head out from the muffling folds of the blanket. Then came the scratch of the match in Frank's hand. He held it up first in order to see what was going on, and then with a burst of laughter began to apply the flickering flame to the wick of the ready lamp. And as the light filled the interior of the shed, the boys saw a sight that sent them off into spasms of uproarious merriment. Yes, it was Elephant, all right, just as he had so wildly declared when he heard all that threatening talk about guns and peppering and such dire things. He had evidently fallen out of the canoe as he tossed about during some dream that excited his mind. In tumbling to the floor, his heels had upset the entire outfit of tin kettles and pans that Andy had fetched from the house. Such a clattering as they had made upon being dashed to the floor. And as if that were not enough, Elephant had managed to turn a chair over with the lot, adding to the confusion liberally. Larry helped him up, for as he was swathed from head to foot in his flaming red horse blanket, the other was quite unable to manage alone. Poor Elephant rubbed his eyes and stared around him as if looking for the blue dragons that had filled his dreams. "What do you mean by scaring us all half to death, Elephant?" demanded Andy, when he could in some measure command his voice. "My goodness gracious! You don't think I did that a purpose, do you?" exclaimed the small boy, rubbing his elbows as though they tingled after coming in such rough contact with the floor. "What do you take me for? And Larry, didn't I tell you that rare bit would make me dream? You just made me eat it, and now see what happened. Oh, but I thought the whole house had blown up, and I was heading for the stars. It was a fierce experience. Talk about your rare bits, never more for me." "Listen, somebody's coming, sure," exclaimed Larry. "Oh, what if it's Jules after all? Where's the gun, Frank? Get it ready, won't you?" "There, he's pounding at the door. Where's my club? Somebody took my club!" And Elephant scrambled around, looking for the lost weapon which he had placed within reach before retiring. Bang, bang, bang! "Here, open up and let me at the rascals. Frank, Andy, have they murdered you all? Why don't somebody answer? Why don't you open this door before I smash it in with my crutch?" came a roar from without. "It's Colonel Josiah," cried Andy. "Hold on, Colonel. We're all right here. Nobody hurt. All a mistake. Frank, open the door, will you? Nothing doing, Colonel, you see." The aged veteran stalked inside, using his crutch once more to assist his locomotion. In his other hand he gripped a tremendous horse pistol, the very size of which must have sent a shiver through any nocturnal prowler. "It was Elephant who raised the rumpus, Colonel," explained Andy. "He had a dream and fell out of his hammock, knocking over all the tin pans in a chair. We were all scared, thinking it might be Jules come to town." The grim old traveler turned upon Elephant, trying to hide the twinkle in his eyes by pretending to assume a heavy frown. "I won't do it again, I assure you, sir," faltered Elephant, trying to hide behind Frank. "It was an accident, indeed it was. And I bruised both my elbows just fierce. After this I'm going to tie that swinging canoe down so it won't kick me out again." You'd better," was all the old man said as he turned away, but Frank was of the opinion he wished to hurry off, so that he could chuckle over the ridiculous picture presented by the interior of that shop without being seen by the boys and his dignity impaired. "Now get busy, Elephant, and tidy up the mess you made," said Larry, as he once more crawled under his blankets. "And remember," said Andy severely, despite the grin on his face, "we don't stand for any more of this foolishness." "Let me help you tie the canoe so that it can't swing," Frank observed, taking pity on the victim of the mishap, for Elephant was still rubbing his elbows and making faces as though they hurt him. So after a little, peace once more fell upon the camp. The swinging canoe had been so firmly secured that it could not kick as Elephant declared it had done before. Then the light was put out again, and darkness reigned. Frank again sat there, engrossed in thought, and naturally his mind went out in the direction of the recent event. If a false alarm could cause such confusion and excitement, it was probable that in case there came a genuine one, things would take on a still more brilliant color. He could hear Elephant turning from side to side. Perhaps his arms pained him, and thinking thus, Frank was sorry he had not insisted on swabbing them with some witch hazel which they kept handy in the shop in case of bruises while working. But he did not think it good policy to disturb the entire bunch again in order to relieve the slight pain of Elephant, who must sooner or later grow used to hard knocks if he ever expected to face the world. Finally, the boy in the canoe became quiet. Sleep had evidently mastered him, for ere long Frank caught his heavy breathing at such times as the wind stopped sighing around the eaves of the shed. It must be growing near 1 when he expected to hand over his duty as sentry to Larry. All he waited for was to catch the stroke of the hour. He had the lay of things well in his mind, and could even have moved about the shop in utter darkness without tumbling over anything, for he and Andy had spent uncounted hours under that roof during the last year. Ah, there was the anticipated stroke, sounding quite clearly. "Frank," came in a low tone, almost a whisper. "Hello," answered the sentry. "That Larry?" "On deck." "Must have been my call, wasn't it?" Thought I heard one strike as Larry began to raise up alongside Frank, shedding his blankets as he did so. "Have you been awake all the while?" whispered Frank, surprised. "Guess pretty much," chuckled Larry. "That thing just broke me all up. I've been laughing to myself under the blanket ever since." "Oh, is that so?" Frank replied. "Well, do you know I wondered what those queer noises were. Thought possibly you had an ache from eating too much." "How's everything on deck, Frank?" "Fine and dandy. Nothing to cause alarm yet," came the answer. "All right, then. You just crawl in and get a snooze started. I'll take care of the camp up to 3 when Andy comes on duty." "How do you keep awake, Frank?" asked the new guard. "Keep thinking of the late unpleasantness, as you have been doing. It did the trick before and may again. Good night. I'm off." Frank found no little difficulty himself in getting asleep. Unaccustomed to his strange bed and with all the recent excitement added, it was not strange that even Frank had to take himself severely to task before he could lose his senses in slumber. He too dreamed, for had he not also partaken of the same tasty cheese and toast, of which poor Elephant complained as the main cause for his troubles? Several times Frank woke up and was puzzled to understand just where he could be. Then things would come back to again, and with a chuckle he would turn over to once more lose himself in sleep. The third time this happened, he lay there listening. It seemed to him that he had heard a slight rustling noise, and moreover, it had come from the far end of the shed. Could it be Larry? And if so, what business had the sentry to be wandering about that section of the forbidden ground? Another fancy struck Frank, to the effect that it might be either Andy or Stuttering Nat walking in their sleep. If that proved to be the case, then the awakening was likely to surprise somebody, unless he was very much mistaken. He put out his hand and felt Andy in his accustomed place. Then, rising quietly, he crawled over far enough to come in contact with Nat's arm, thrust out from his blanket. This left only Elephant, whom he found slumbering soundly in his canoe, and the sentry, who was also fast asleep. Frank felt a thrill pass over him at this. Then the sound could not have been made by any one of his comrades. Who then was prowling around that danger zone? Even as he asked himself this important question, he heard a sudden sharp click that could only be made by the trigger of his deadfall trap. Then came a heavy, sodden, crunching sound that told better than words what had happened. Frank jumped to his feet, shouting, "Wake up! Wake up! We've got something, fellows! Wake up, everybody!" End of chapter 15.